Hi, I'm Bradlee Simoneaux. Welcome back to The Scene. Tonight we're going to start a new segment for you guys called Brad's Big Brains, where we go into some different hot topics that are floating around the college football landscape. And tonight we're going to start with our preseason preview and predictions. And for this segment I have my partner Travis Koehler here in the studio.
How you doing?
And so we're going to get you started by talking about the conference that produced last year's national champion. Travis, the ACC, Florida State coming back this year, has a returning Heisman Trophy winner. What do you think about the Seminoles' chances of a repeat, and who else in the conference might be able to take a step up?
Well, I think anytime you talk about a repeat, the odds are stacked against you, no matter who you are, no matter what you have returning, no matter what your schedule is. You definitely have a challenge. So, I mean, it's hard for me to predict that they're going to repeat because the odds just aren't good. Clemson is generally the number 2 school, but they're in our division, so it's going to be difficult for them to come out of the ACC. They may be able to represent us in quote-unquote BCS Bowl down in Miami. I don't see too many other teams really making too much noise. Miami is like on their 3rd-string quarterback, and they brought in a guy who completed 50% of his passes. Louisville is replacing a whole lot.
What about our local team here at Georgia Tech? What do you think about their chances this year?
Well, I think they had like 17 people at their spring game.
Yeah, that's about average for a regular home game, right?
I know that's a lot. That's a lot of Tech fans.
That's an average ACC home game for anybody.
I grew up liking Tech. I grew up here in Atlanta. I rooted for Tech over Georgia. One of 2 people in my entire school, I think. But I think they're going to go through some struggles this year until they kind of turn the page from the Paul Johnson era. They can't get rid of him because of his contract. It's looking like it's going to be 1 more year. Then they're going to turn the page and start something new. It's a good football program. They have more national titles than most schools out there.
Yeah, I agree. And one team I think you need to watch out for this year in the ACC is Syracuse. I think returning Terrell Hunt at quarterback and Prince Tyson Gully at running back, I think they've got a good core there in the backfield to really make some noise. And not a lot of people are thinking about the Orange, but they made a bowl game last year after several awful years in a row, so they might be an up-and-comer in the ACC right now. But like you, I think Florida State's the team to beat. I personally think Jameis Winston's, got to be the front runner for Heisman Trophy again this year, as long as he doesn't, get any cravings for shellfish again or something like that.
Yeah.
So as long as he stays away from that type of delicacy, maybe Florida State won't have any trouble.
He just has to stay away from Publix on Pensacola Street.
Yeah,
if he does that.
As long as he does that, Florida State should be good. So, as far as your ACC champion this year, do you think Florida State repeats, or do you see anybody else?
I think we're the heavy favorite. I see us playing either UNC or Virginia Tech with an outside shot of Miami. I like Miami's offensive firepower. They have Stacy Coley, Duke Johnson. They're coming around. But they lost their quarterback for the year in their spring game, so they're really hurt there. But they got a puncher's chance. I'd like to see them represent their division in the championship game. That's the matchup everyone's wanted to see in that.
Yeah, everybody since the ACC added Miami and Boston College. Everybody thought Florida State and Miami would be your ultimate matchup in the ACC championship game, and I think if memory serves me right, that's happened 0 times since Miami came into the league. So. Hasn't quite worked out the way the ACC wanted. If I was them, I'd consider looking at like the Big Ten did this year and just split it instead of East-West for the ACC, do North-South. Put Florida State and Miami in the same division, make that game definitely matter every year because they'll be battling it out for a divisional championship. And then, obviously the North Division will be subpar now, talent-wise, but you never know. These things go in cycles, so... Yeah, it could be a good option to explore in the future.
I would, if it was up to me, I would get rid of the divisions altogether. Let's just give the fans the best matchup. Let's, play Clemson twice, Louisville twice, whatever it is. But let's just give the fans the best matchup. Nobody wants to see a team get steamrolled in the title game. I don't even want to see that if it's my team, to tell you the truth. I love a good game.
Yeah.
I get disinterested in the second half if we're up by 30, and I'm on to something else.
All right, well, let's move over to everybody's favorite conference here, the SEC, in the heart of SEC country over here. We get the taste of both worlds. So, looking at the SEC picture this year, we've got Auburn, who was in the national championship last year, bringing back Nick Marshall, starting quarterback, one of the favorites for the Heisman Trophy. You've got Alabama, always good under Nick Saban, best recruiting class every single year.
Yep.
Florida, great talent, had a subpar year last year. South Carolina, up and coming with Spurrier. Especially that Eastern Division, people, don't really know what's going to happen this year. What's your thoughts on the SEC East?
I think it's going to be, without a clear-cut favorite, I think we're going to see, 3, maybe 4 teams in it until the end, which is fun for the fans. South Carolina's got a shot, Georgia's got a shot. A lot of people think Florida has a shot. That's good for the fans. It keeps them engaged throughout the entire season. It's always fun to be in it. I don't think that there is the most complete team, in my opinion, is South Carolina. I see definite holes in Georgia with their defensive personnel. They're missing a bunch there. I believe they lost their starting nose tackle for the season. UF has personnel issues on the offensive side of the ball, and they lost a top 100 recruit, and I believe Thomas Holly, a defensive tackle. So it's there's not a complete juggernaut team like an Alabama on that side.
My bold prediction for the evening is actually out of the SEC East. Everybody's talking about South Carolina, Georgia battling it out for the SEC East championship. I'm a big believer in the Gators bounce back. I think the Florida Gators are going to win the SEC East. I think Jeff Driscoll and a talented stable of running backs, along with, that fire that's going to be under Will Muschamp this year to perform, because this is make or break for him. If he has another bad year, he could be shown the door. So I think Florida's going to really take a big step back up into national prominence this year, and I see them reaching the SEC title game. I do think South Carolina and Georgia will also be good, but one team to watch out for, maybe not this year, but definitely an up-and-comer, is Kentucky. I think Mark Stoops has got that program on the up and up. He's recruited the best Kentucky has ever recruited. He's got the fan base more excited than they've ever been for football before. So as long as he stays there, look for some good things to be happening in Lexington soon.
Now Tennessee's in the East, right?
Tennessee is in the East. We didn't mention them.
We didn't mention Tennessee, and I apologize. I think Tennessee has probably got some of the best momentum from a program standpoint as any team in the nation right now. They're recruiting, and they're hanging in there.
But Tennessee also had a lot of momentum under Lane Kiffin. They had a lot of momentum when Derek Dooley first got there. They've had a lot of things that have generated momentum their way. The fan base gets all excited, thinks everything's turned around, and then boom, here comes another 5-7 season. So, is Tennessee finally going to turn that corner again? Or are they one of those teams that's kind of slipped and is really going to struggle for a while to get back to the top of college football?
The one word that describes their team is young. They don't have a senior-laden team of experience that has competed for the SEC championship game. They're extremely talented, in my opinion. They're climbing the recruiting rankings, but they're just young.
Well, and Josh Dobbs from here in Alpharetta was, one of the young players many thought would take the quarterback position by the reins this year, but he hasn't seized the opportunity, and Tennessee turned back to veteran Justin Worley, named him the starting quarterback, and we've already seen what Justin Worley can do. He's not great. He's not bad. He's just somewhere in the middle, and a school like Tennessee needs to find that difference maker. Moving to the SEC West.
Torrance Gibson.
Moving to the SEC West, we've got 3 recent national champions in Alabama, Auburn, and LSU, just in that one division in college football. And that's not even to mention a Texas A&M, which has been in the top 10, or an Arkansas program that's the last few years fallen on hard times, but was pretty successful there in the 2000 to 2010 years. What is your expectations this year? A lot of new quarterbacks breaking into the SEC West. What do you see out of that division?
I tend to go against the flow here. Most people are going to pick Alabama, and rightfully so. They've been there. They don't have anything to prove to anybody. They have a roster full of talent that is up there with anybody in the nation. But I just put a premium on quarterback play, and I believe Nick Marshall and Auburn are going to get the job done and get to the SEC championship game. I just firmly believe in proving leadership at QB, and there's no doubt about it. That guy is tested. He's going to be a Heisman candidate to talk about. I don't know if he'll get to New York, but that's my team coming out of the West.
I completely agree with you. I'm on the Auburn bandwagon as well. They were great last year with Gus Malzahn's first year of his new system. I think year 2 is when you see a lot of improvement. All the players have been around him for a full year now, had 2 off seasons to prepare. They're only going to get better. He's a great play caller. They're returning a lot of veteran leadership, and they know what it likes to win. They had a couple games they pulled out of their hat last year, but coming back this year, that should have only helped them have that sense of urgency, know what it takes to win. And, I really think that they're one of the teams that knows what they're getting this year. And
you are still going to hate playing Auburn. With that offense, you are still going to hate them. Your team is going to hate preparing for them. Your fan base is going to hate watching that. That offense. It's tricky. They're going to. In my opinion, that's the only offense I've ever seen that affected the other team's offense.
Yeah.
It put such an urgency on the other team to score that I believe at times it changed the offensive play calling for the other team.
But sometimes that, is a problem for them too, because they score so fast. Their defense isn't quite up to par with some of the best defenses in the SEC, so they've struggled and been in a lot of shootouts. Looking at Alabama, great team. Nick Saban's been a great coach for a long time, but I do see, there's been some rumblings that Jacob Coker and Blake Sims aren't doing that great in scrimmages. They're not really performing that well. So I know Alabama only needs a game manager quarterback, but they might not even have that this year. I look for them to lose to both LSU and Auburn, and in an upset special preseason, I think the Tennessee Vols will beat Alabama this year. So I've got Alabama with 3 losses.
Tennessee would love that.
Yes, they would. And then I got LSU beating Alabama but losing to Auburn, and Auburn winning that tiebreaker to go to the SEC championship, where I think Auburn beats Florida and gets in that initial college football playoff.
My theory on Alabama is this, okay? Or theory is a wrong word. I wonder the relationship and the chemistry between Kiffin and Saban. When and if that presents, a little bit of friction, how is that handled? I'm not a big Kiffin fan. I feel like he is not the kind of guy that I would want leading my team. Not sure how he's going to coexist with a guy like Saban.
Can you imagine what's going to happen when he goes back to Knoxville this year with the Alabama Crimson Tide? Not only do you have Tennessee's most hated rival with one of the most hated coaches ever by opposing fan bases in Nick Saban, now he's bringing with him Lane Kiffin, another absolutely hated man in Knoxville. So, even though Tennessee fans might be outnumbered in their own stadium in that one, look for a lot of boosts to be raining down at Neyland Stadium.
Yep.
So let's bat it around the country a little bit, focus on the ACC and SEC here in Atlanta. But let's look at the Big Ten. Huge news today out of the Big Ten. Braxton Miller, quarterback for Ohio State, done. 2 shoulder injuries in the last year. He's out for the season. He says he wants to come back next year and play. You got to feel bad for the guy. He was one of the leading contenders for the Heisman Trophy this year on a team many people predicted to be there at the end. I personally thought Michigan State was going to come out of the Big Ten anyway, but I thought it was kind of a toss-up. Now, I think Michigan State's definitely the team to beat. I don't see Ohio State making it to the Final Four in the playoff, but what do you think?
I like Ohio State's defense a lot more this year than last year. Their defensive line is typically always talked about in the top 5 of the country, and to me it always starts up front. If you don't have that piece of the puzzle, the rest is going to come tumbling down. But I don't feel like Urban Meyer's offense is dependent on a quarterback that can carve up a team with his arm. It needs to be a guy who can execute the offense and has some wheels and some size to him. I can't remember I think there's a redshirt freshman quarterback who's around 6'3", 225, mobile, and shows a lot of promise. I was actually on the Ohio State boards today, kind of reading and seeing what they think, and I was really surprised. It wasn't all doom and gloom on those boards. I figured everybody would have been, they're totally different. But
they're better than 11 teams on their schedule, and the only team they really have to worry about is Michigan State. So even without Braxton Miller, there's a good chance this team goes 11-1. Which is a great season, and they just have to pull an upset on Michigan State, and they're still in the national championship picture. It just gets a little bit harder now.
Stinks to lose a Heisman. That guy would have been at the Heisman Trophy ceremony, in my opinion.
And one team nobody's really talking about this year, Michigan. Brady Hoke's recruited great there. Devin Gardner's back for what seems like his 15th season at Michigan. But the Wolverines are predicted near the bottom of the top 25. Not a lot of people believing in them. They have, the most talent in the Big Ten besides Ohio State. They've recruited the best. Are they going to be able to put it together this year, or are they still going to kind of be treading water back there in the middle of the pack?
I've been waiting for Michigan to show me something over the last several years. They had that big game versus Alabama to open the season up a few years ago, and I believe Alabama just kicked them in the teeth and put them to bed. I've been waiting for that program to turn the corner. Michigan is good. Even if you hate a school like Michigan, they're good for college football. You know,
Definitely.
I mean, the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry, one of the greatest in the country,
and now, like I was mentioning before, Florida State, Miami, Michigan, Ohio State, first year they're going to be in the same division. No chance that they can play each other twice, but all the more importance on that last game of the year, which is really going to, I think, amp up the stakes even more in what's already known as one of the two best rivalry games in the country besides the Iron Bowl.
Yeah.
Shooting over to the West Coast, let's talk a little Pac-12 football. Two
way over
of
there.
the top 10 teams in the country the last few years, and Oregon and Stanford have been coming up from the West Coast, and both teams predicted to be good again this year. UCLA is a trendy pick out of a lot of prognosticators to possibly get in that college football playoff this year. USC's got a new coach. Washington's got a new coach. You still got the two big names, but a lot of change going on elsewhere. How do you see the Pac-12 shaking out this year?
Well, he gave his bold prediction. My bold prediction is that you'll see two Pac-10 teams make the playoffs, or Pac-12.
Pac-12 now.
Pac-12. Sorry, I'm catching up here. Like I said before, I put a premium on quarterback play. They've got two of the best quarterbacks in the country out there. They're coming back. These are not new guys. They're breaking in. They may beat up on each other a little bit. They may both have one loss. But I think at the end of the day, the voters don't have to go by the polls. They can put anybody in they want into the playoffs. And
they're going to want somebody from the West Coast, at least one team.
I think it's going to be two. I'm sorry, I just don't see the quarterback play coming out of the SEC. Even I like Nick Marshall, but he's got a tough schedule.
He does.
They may have 2 or 3 losses.
Maybe. I'm really personally excited to see what Chris Peterson's going to do at Washington. Coming from Boise State, the most successful program in college football in the last 10 to 15 years. They've sent multiple coaches, to higher division teams. Haven't been successful. Dan Hawkins failed. Dirk Cutter failed. Now you got Chris Peterson, who I personally think is the best of the bunch and is an absolute home run hire at Washington. But you never know. History for Boise State coaches tends to go against the grain a little bit. What do you think about him at Washington?
Well, the guy got results where he was. It's time to see if he can do it on the bigger stage.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. I mean, you can't deny. Personally, I like those kind of hires. I really like hires where a guy comes in hungry. He proved it at a place like Boise or like Urban Meyer, who was at Utah before. They're still hungry even though they've had tremendous success. And they get to a place like that, and they're not complacent. They're not satisfied with what they did in the past because now it's their shot at the ring.
Right. And Chris Peterson knew every year he had an outside shot at making the Fiesta Bowl, maybe. Mm-hmm. But that was the best he could ever hope for. Now at Washington, he can dream big. He can dream national title big at a program that
has the resources to get him.
Has been a national title contender in the not too distant past.
I wouldn't sleep on Oregon State either. I'm telling you, their offense is going to be fun to watch. They returned the quarterback and his 5 favorite receivers. He threw for like 4,500 yards last year.
And he was named outstanding quarterback at the Manning Passing Academy earlier this summer. So, Oregon State's got a lot of talent, but they're kind of living in Marcus Mariota and Oregon's shadow a little bit there.
Yeah, but I love their offense. I mean, if
they just need a few more uniform schemes and combinations because they're not competing with the guys over there in Eugene. Oregon's got 5 different uniforms every week.
I know. We need Maryland versus. We need the apparel bowl. Nike. We need Oregon versus Maryland.
Yeah. Speaking of apparel, did anybody see the new uniforms Notre Dame's got today? They're starting this called the Shamrock Series. They're playing Purdue in Indianapolis, and for the first time ever, they're going to have the interlocking ND on the gold helmet. So new look. Under Armour sponsored Notre Dame, biggest apparel deal in history, 10 years, I think $80 million to put their logo on Notre Dame jerseys. Going to be interesting, losing tradition a little bit. Be interesting to see if an Alabama or Penn State ever uses an alternative uniform because they're the only two that I can think of that have held on to that tradition the most.
Speaking of Notre Dame, how do you feel about how they handled the academic scandal recently?
Notre Dame 2 years in a row has had to deal with academic problems. Not quite what you'd expect from an elite academic university in America, especially one that prides themselves on the whole person, not just the athlete. So, a little disappointed in what's been going on at Notre Dame. I'm glad to see Everett Golson back. I think he did a great job as a freshman leading his team to the national championship. Even though they got killed by Alabama, still pretty impressive to get there. Played great all year. I look for Notre Dame to make a big bounce back this year. Probably be in the top 10. Don't think they'd make the college football playoff. Shoot it over to the Big 12, the last of our Big 5 conferences. most people have Oklahoma picked in there. Texas always has tons of talent, but just, a little off the radar lately. Do you think Oklahoma's got this in the bag, or do you think anybody else in the Big 12 might be able to upset the wagon?
Well, I'm going to make Clemson fans really happy here, okay? It's not – the Sooners mess up their season as much as anybody else out there, in my opinion, okay? They seem to have – they get past their hard game, and then they play Oklahoma State or, a bottom-tier top
Texas
25
Tech.
And lose the game. They have it all right there. They're in control of their own destiny, and they wet the bed, and there it goes. And then they lose another game. I think we found out it was today or yesterday, Joe Mixon, all-world running back, is out for the season. Apparently he was a little bit too aggressive. I think with his girlfriend. I think he hit his girlfriend or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I just know that Oklahoma won't be hard-pressed to find somebody else from another school. It seems like they take everybody's castaways these days.
DGB, Dorial Green Beckham.
Star receiver from Missouri going to Oklahoma this year. So, Bob Stoops might be getting a little pressure to win there and might be pulling a few strings that he never would have pulled in the past.
Well, he's got the quarterback back this year who played.
Trevor Knight killed Alabama in the Sugar Bowl.
You got to have the quarterback. I'm telling you, premium on quarterback play. Who's he going to throw to? Who's he going to hand the ball off to? That's kind of the question now.
And that's one of the main reasons why I like Texas Tech in the Big 12 this year. Cliff Kingsbury came in, Geraldo Young coach last year. Texas Tech started 7-0, was in the top 10 in the nation. They lost their last 5 games before the bowl game, completely tanked. Came back in the bowl game and blew out their opponent. So, they kind of had a season of ups and downs, but they're returning almost every player from last year except their tight end, who was a star draft pick in the NFL.
You gotta love returning.
They're going to have a great offense. Kingsbury's back in his second year. Big 12's not that great this year. They're not that great across the board. They're a team I think you can watch out for. TCU had a bad year last year. Their defense is always good, though. They might be taking a step back up in the top this year. And, of course, Baylor. Nobody talks about Baylor until the last couple of years. It's just like, this program that was an absolute bottom dweller for so long has now, for several years running, been right there in the top 10. And it's kind of hard to think about, especially here in SEC country. You kind of equate Baylor to a Vanderbilt. I could never see Vanderbilt being a top 10 program. Don't even think it's ever going to be possible. It's probably what a lot of people in Texas thought about Baylor. And so you got to give Art Briles credit for turning that program around. Probably one of the best turnarounds I've ever seen.
Those are kind of coaches I like, man. They do more with less. A guy like Franklin at Vanderbilt. You give guys like that a shot with a major program, and I just always think they're going to do a good job.
Yeah. So we've hit around the 5 big conferences. Just to get a little shout out to the little guys, any thoughts on a non-BCS, non-Power 5 conference team that might be one to look out for this year? Boise State's got a new coach, still got a lot of talent coming back. Utah State, Chucky Keaton, great quarterback out there playing Tennessee. Vols better watch out for that one. But, this is the first time in my lifetime I've never seen a top 25 team or a top 25 poll have no teams outside the Power 5 conferences. Not one single lower major program got ranked in the top 25 in either the coaches or the AP poll. There's a lot of disrespect out there this year. I personally think Houston's going to be a great team to look out for. Cincinnati will be a team to watch out for. Any teams you got?
We talking about UCF?
UCF, they count.
Yeah, I like UCF.
But Blake Bortles, he's gone.
I mean, they're the second best program in Florida right now. Sorry, UF in Miami. But I don't know. I like them. They're always going to pull talent out of the state of Florida, and I'll take a 3-star out of the state of Florida over a 4-star out of the state of Utah any day. So
Georgia O'Leary has done a great job down there at UCF. Going to the Fiesta Bowl, beating Baylor easily.
Yeah,
in the Fiesta Bowl. Blake Bortles gone, top 10 pick, one of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Gone now, but there's still a lot of talent down there in Orlando. So UCF might be a good team to watch out for. Let's talk college football playoff. The first year of the college football playoff, 4 teams are going to make it. 2 teams will play in the finals, and 1 team will win it all, and we'll finally have an official national champion in college football. I personally like the BCS more than almost anybody else I know, but now that it's done, I got to embrace the new system. Who's your preseason 4 teams that are going to make it to the playoffs?
Well, it changed today with Braxton Miller going out, but I have my team, Florida State, in there. I admit our road seems to get easier every day with the academic scandal at Notre Dame taking away their 4 best players. That was going to be our toughest game. but I look for Florida State to come out of the ACC. I'm still taking Auburn out of the SEC. And then I just don't have the confidence in Oklahoma's personnel yet. So I'm taking Oregon and UCLA out of the pack.
You said there was going to be 2 Pac-12 teams, so I'm not one of those people buying into UCLA this year, nor am I one that really falls for that fancy Oregon offense. So I'm going Stanford out of the Pac-12 to win that conference again, get into the college football playoff. I think Michigan State now, especially with Braxton Miller out, is the favorite from the Big Ten. I think those 2 teams who met in the Rose Bowl last year will both be in the college football playoff. And then I look at the 2 teams that were in the national championship last year. I think they're just as good, if not better, this year. So I agree with you on Florida State and Auburn being 2 of the teams that are going to be in the Final Four. As far as the national champion goes, I'm going to repeat. I think the Seminoles have the best team returning. I think they have a great leader, a great coach, tons of talent coming back, and a lot of uncertainty elsewhere around the country. So, I think Florida State, national championships being played in Dallas this year, I think that's a place that they're going to win. I think Florida State, depending on how the Final Four matches up, is going to have a favorable matchup against either Stanford, Michigan State, or Auburn. So I look for the Seminoles to repeat. I do not think, however, Jameis Winston's going to win the Heisman Trophy.
Tough.
I personally think that we're going to have somebody, an unknown, probably a dual threat quarterback, come from somewhere, much like a Johnny Manziel's done.
Mariota.
There's going to be somebody out there that's under the radar right now that's going to win the Heisman Trophy. I don't think we know his name yet. I'm going for the dark horse I'm going for the field against the favorites right here for the Heisman Trophy.
It's going to be a quarterback. I mean, I had Braxton Miller that I thought was going to be there, Jameis Winston, Mariota, and guy out of Oklahoma, White. Is it White?
Trevor Wright.
Trevor Wright. Okay. I like those.
Trevor Knight.
It could be Nate Marshall. I guess see Nate Marshall there too. He's going to put up some ridiculous numbers. I mean, that offense is going to score even without Trey Marshall there. So that's who I got. I mean,
who's your national champion?
Well, there's no reason for me to go against Florida State, but I just think it's impossible. It's not impossible, but the odds are just stacked against you when you have to repeat and you have the target on your back and you have to go all the way. So I'm going to go against the grain here. I think Auburn's going to surprise everybody this year with their team. Get back there. I know they're hungry, okay? And get back there and take the ring.
So we got a big War Eagle over here from Travis, and I'll give the Seminole chop. So looks like we both think the 2 teams that made it last year are going to be there at the end of the year this year.
The key is not having to travel to Pasadena if you're on the on the East Coast. So you want to get thing to remember.
The team ranked number 1 is going to get cut the closest to them in the semifinals. So, the choices are New Orleans, California. If you don't get that number 1 ranking, you're not assured playing close to home. You could be shipped out west if you're an East Coast team, or shipped out east if you're a West Coast team.
Yeah,
it really matters the seedings going into the playoff.
I mean, I'm sure every SEC team, every ACC team, and the big conferences, only the Pac is going to want to go to Pasadena.
Yes.
They're not going to want to come over here. So, but I think that's going to matter. I mean, traveling all the way out there, pain in the butt.
Well, thanks, Travis, for helping us out with the predictions this year, and thanks for joining me on Brad's Big Brains. This is a segment we're going to have weekly here on The Scene. Travis will be here all year helping me out with it, and I'll be helping him out with some of the projects he's working on this year for The Scene. Be sure to come back next week. Thanks for watching. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Awesome.